Islamism. Before we continue with the reading, I wanted to go over this newspaper clip that coincides with the demonstration. It has the diagram. White areas, territories of British India where nationalists are seeking independence. Shaded areas, territory ruled absolutely by native princes. Riots, martial law, many killed. But then right here it shows Gandhi interned here. And in this reading, it mentions Gandhi assisting the British and the India, which is the East India Company, or if you want to speak of the Commonwealth and the Americas, are known as a loose confederation of the former British Empire. But then there was those that wanted to hide, and they changed it to state of. But the Commonwealth is known as the original colonies, what they called. But these nationalists knew that India was a modern term, again, the East India Company. And we showed how it was connected with Canaan land, who they was talking about Canada, but the land is Canaan land. A lot of this has to do with Cecil Rhodes. You know, Cecil Rhodes on America, outline future of the United States. Colonization will go on. When I looked up Cecil Rhodes, he was speaking of trying to make the British more powerful and extract the gold and resources all over the world. But he left in his will that specific bloodlines, such as Bill Clinton, would be able to go to these certain colleges to best know how to do economics with the resources. It's crazy. Go look it up. So the unfurling of the green banner, the sign of the prophet and the battle standard of the Muslim world, would mean a struggle such as the world has never seen before. Keep in mind, again, at this same time, the Moorish flag existed. This is 1914 during the Prophet, but even up into the 1930s, we have the clippings and have the readings of the Europeans fighting against the dividing of the Moorish Empire. And they didn't hide it. They said the Moorish Empire, Europeans are fighting against the dividing of the Moorish Empire and killing off those that was willing to fight against the European powers. I recommend you go on the playlist and go through the Moorish mission study, because the Europeans say, hey, we can't use the coup de force no more because everybody's getting a conscience. We got to do a coup d'etat. We have to have the European powers behind the Moorish throne, what you would call the hand in the puppet. And that is just what is threatened by such an enlightened person as A. Rustam Bey, Turkish ambassador at Washington and husband of an American girl, quote unquote. India has forever been called a seething mass. Lord Curzon, Curzon, who spoke from the experience of long viceroyship over that country, once declared that England's rule was only a bit of froth upon the surface of an unfathomable ocean. Thus, the voluntary offer of troops and money to England by some 14 of these quote-unquote Oriental potentates is not the proof of united and devoted loyalty that Great Britain would like to think, even though India were united for England. And we already went over the study of King of England was the head of the Masonic order and all that. It can never be united in itself. Mohammedan and Brahmanists and Buddhists and Confucianists cannot dwell in peace. No more can Sikh or Punjab and Bengai. I keep asking me if I'm Punjab. You know what I'm talking about if you know what I'm talking about. Keep asking me if I'm Punjab. The world still remembers the horrors of the Sikh rebellion of the 50s. The massacres of Christians in Turkey are still fresh in the memories of newspaper readers. The hideous cruelties of the Boxers will never be forgotten. With followers of Mohammed on the warpath, their given banner leaving a crimson trail wherever it was carried, the world indeed would see a catastrophe such as has never occurred before. When A. Rustam Bey, I'm going to see if I can look up his image. Hold on. So he's definitely a pale skin. But we already have the recordings. One of the things that was brought up with Noble Drew Ali at the Pan American Conference was that the Treaty of Madrid was representation of the Moors by Europeans, and therefore anything agreed on couldn't stand because they didn't have proper representation because they was represented by Europeans. They said the Moors didn't show up there, so then the Europeans felt that they could go ahead and make decisions for them. And that was brought up at the Pan American Conference in 1928. We have the recordings at the playlist Pan American Conference Study. Let's go ahead and get this reading out the way. We got a couple minutes. I'm going to try to keep it to 7 minutes because of your attention span. When A. Rustam Bey gave utterances to his momentous threat, he was discussing the European war and Turkey's part in it as the potential ally of Germany. The German emperor, first to alarm the world by pointing out the yellow peril, has protested against the use by the allies of the Turcos from Africa and Hindus from India. The Turcos are Mohammedans, as are some of the Hindu troops. Wilhelm was also protested to the neutral world the action of England in calling on her Far Eastern ally, Japan. The Kaiser objects to his white Christian war machine being compelled to battle with the sun worshippers of Nippon, the Muslims of Africa, and the Buddhists, Brahmanists, and Mohammedans of Asia. A. Rustam Bey, in explaining Germany's friendship with Turkey, protested that his country has been despoiled by England and France and Italy, and we know France was all over the Moorish Empire, all the way over here. The loss of Egypt, which was to England, Morocco, Algeria, and other Muslim strongholds still ranks the Sublime Porte. Then what part is played by the Gaik War of Barado and the 13 other Indian princes who have offered to take up arms for their league country? Are they fighting for the pure love of fighting, or merely to impress the mother country with their power and strength? And that's what all these Muslims was doing, trying to keep up with the European. Oh, they got a gold watch, I want a gold watch. Whatever motive actuates the princes themselves, it can be said with emphasis that the same motive does not impel the thousands of their followers to give up their blood and their homes for a war which they can neither understand nor appreciate. So when Gaik War of Baroda, India's second most powerful prince and the man who insulted King George at the famous Durbar Day presentation, proffered his sword, his army, and his war to British government, 13 others promptly fell into line. Remember, in the Moorish mission study, Scottish Maclean went with the Moorish ambassador to meet with King Edward VII. These would undoubtedly take up the banner spread in Turkey and India, at once would become the seething mass of fanatically furious men. Buddhists and Brahmanists and Confucianists, of which there are millions along the northern border, might take advantage of the chaos to proclaim their religion, or they might side with the Mohammedans against the hated Christian. At any rate, the Christians would soon be exterminated. Then would begin a series of long and bloody wars for independence. Bengalese and Sikh would uncover their centuries-old differences. In Tibet and in Punjab, blood would flow even more lavishly than it did for the centuries. Noble Drew Ali said it was going to go to the horse's brow, during which Great Britain was putting its stamp of authority on the empire, first by fighting native princes against native prince, and then conquering both when they were too exhausted to fight any longer. Indeed. So when you see this A. Rustam Bey and he's pale skinned and there's talking about him being the ambassador in regards to the United States and he's under the green banner, in these days, that green banner are the ones who decided to go with the European powers in regards to taking over the empire. That's how I see it, because the Moorish flag is the one that reigns high. I leave you in love and peace. Divine honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish divine and national movement of the world.